Pradeep Khanna from the University of Illinois, and it's my pleasure to welcome all of you to the first International Congress on Post-Harvest Loss Prevention. Post-harvest loss is one of the biggest challenges facing food security and agriculture across the world. And dealing with a problem like this requires a broad partnership, requires support from people across the world and from agencies across the world. And we are very fortunate to have with us today leaders from major international organizations who have made a personal commitment themselves and a commitment on behalf of their organizations to work to address problems of agriculture, especially post-harvest losses. At this stage, I'll request Dr. Bob Hauser, Dean, College of Agriculture, Consumer and Environmental Sciences at the University of Illinois, to formally inaugurate the conference.
Thank you, Pradeep. I've been asked to help welcome you this morning to this first Congress. It's actually quite a humbling experience, to be honest with you, because of the august nature of this group. I look through the roster and I see many, many individuals who I've met in travels or who have visited the university. The fact that you're here, because I know how busy you are, I know a lot of the responsibilities that you have, really does speak to the importance of what we're doing, what we're trying to do. I am from a college of ag, broadly speaking. In the past couple years, we have prioritized the food security issue, the global food security issue, as something that's going to be very important to our academic research and outreach programs. But a very, very fundamental question that we have faced is, what is our role as a public research institution, given everyone else's involvement, whether it is the private sector, whether it is NGOs, public agencies, on and on. And that's very much exemplified here, and one of the, I think, the top issues of how do we make this collaboration, these partnerships work in the most effective way possible. Let me read, if you allow, the objective of this conference. It is to form a high-level coalition among stakeholders, policymakers, business partners, producers, research, education, outreach experts, that's me, or I represent it anyway, government, private, international organizations, and funding agencies to create a roadmap for post-harvest loss prevention by formulating needs and plans for future actions towards a global consensus on measurement. Okay? Well, besides welcoming you, and that's really what I want to limit my remarks to, is basically a welcome. I also want to follow up on that objective and ask, and please make a suggestion anyway, that we do more than just say that and really make it very, very, very important for this Congress, for this next 2 days to focus, next 2 or 3 days to focus on something that's easy to say but very hard to do. But this type of partnership, especially for us, is absolutely necessary for success. So I'm welcoming you on behalf of part of the University of Illinois, a single college within that university. But the post-harvest loss effort is a campus-wide effort. It's a campus-wide program. It got started in a big way in 2011 with the formation of the ADM Institute. Because it's a campus-wide effort, we've asked for a statement from our interim chancellor in a virtual sense. Before that, I'd like to thank our former chancellor, Phyllis Wise, who is here, and she played a big role in developing the Institute, creating a lot of the things that we're doing on campus today, and is also the chair of the planning committee, and obviously that planning committee did a fantastic job. The planning committee and the program committee will be recognized later in more detail as they deserve. But I just wanted to mention the fact that Phyllis is here, and we very much appreciate that. With that, let's hear from our interim chancellor, Dr. Barbara Wilson.
Hi, I'm Barb Wilson, interim chancellor of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I want to echo Dean Hauser's words of welcome at this first International Congress. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for the work that will begin today. And trust me, the world is watching to see the new ideas born here. Of all the challenges we face as a society, feeding the world is one that we have the knowledge, the resources, and the ability to substantially address right now within our reach. Right now, something on the order of 33% of every bushel harvested worldwide is lost. Right now, 1/3 of the food we grow on this planet is simply wasted. We can change that. We can do it now with tools, technologies, and programs that exist today. And we can change that equation permanently with new innovations for the future. But we can only make that happen by coming together with a singular purpose and with a commitment to put aside boundaries of geography, politics, and economic disparity. The challenge is too big for any one agency or nation to solve alone. Today is when together we can take the first steps, mapping a path to food security. Because regardless of the language we speak, the religion we follow, or where in the world we might come from, there are 7 billion of us together on this earth. All of us need to eat, and all of us deserve to know that there will be food available to us. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining the conversation. This is how we start to change a world together.
Okay, again, thank you for being here and welcome. Have a great Congress, and I'm sure it'll be exceptionally productive. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hauser. The Congress today has representatives from 62 countries. Over 250 people have signed up and are actually present here today. Thank you all for coming and taking time out of your very busy schedules to be here with us. At this stage, I'd like to invite Dr. Robert Easter, President Emeritus of the University of Illinois. Bob has had a distinguished career in agricultural research and leadership in academic issues related to agriculture. He started his life at Illinois as a graduate student in the 70s and has held every single position from professor onwards at the university, retiring as the president earlier this year. Dr. Easter.
Thank you very much, Pradeep. It's a pleasure to be here and to be a part of this event. I want to begin by just echoing Dr. Hauser's appreciation to Chancellor Wise for her contributions and leadership over the past several years as this process has evolved. Having spent a career in agriculture, my work has often taken me to developing nations around the world, and I've often witnessed firsthand the losses of primary grains, pulses, oilseeds, and other foodstuffs that occur in the absence of adequate harvesting, drying, storage, and logistical systems. I have to say that I am heartened by the growing interest and the willingness of private sector, non-governmental organizations, and international agencies to work on this incredibly important area. It's this topic that has brought us here together. Each of you are to be complimented for your commitment to taking up this challenge. I'm impressed that actually more than 300 have now registered from this Congress, over 60 countries represented, and 6 continents. It is a global issue, and we have global participation here. Our work is not trivial. Success is by no means guaranteed, but from that phrase from the movie, failure is not an option. This Congress could be a seminal moment in the history of post-harvest loss, or it could just be another conference. I'm at the point in my career where I don't want to be at just another conference. I truly hope that we can come together in a sense of collaboration and cooperation that commits ourselves to action that will have impact on this very important area. University of Illinois' involvement in the project was made possible by a $10 million gift from ADM Cares, the foundation, and the Institute was established on the Urbana campus for addressing the global problem of deterioration and loss of food grains and pulses between the field and the consumer. ADM is a global firm based in Chicago, Illinois, that engages in storage, transport, processing of food commodities worldwide. I want to ask the question, why are we concerned about post-harvest loss? I grew up in the decades following the Second World War when we were regularly told of food shortages in less fortunate regions of the world. I actually recall posted on the wall of my high school classroom a statement that reminded us that a third of the world's people went to bed hungry each night. In that time, in that era, the global community embraced the challenges. The tools of science were brought to bear on the issue. NGOs such as the Rockefeller Foundation engaged massively. The World Bank, FAO, the UNDP, host countries, and others joined to establish the Consultative Group for International Agriculture Research, CGIAR, and a network of research centers were established around the world. The product of this effort in the 1950s and 60s was the Green Revolution, an incredible success story. Nations with populations that were on the brink of starvation within a few years became nations where food was sufficient and in some cases exporters of foodstuffs. With success, as always the case, came declining public interest and reduced investments in agriculture research and education. There was this sense that the food problem had been fixed. But in 2008, you will remember that there was a food crisis. And it jolted the global community from what I consider to have been a very long period of complacency. If you look at the record, between March 2007 and March 2008, the price of rice increased by 130%, by wheat 74%, soy by 87%. In 2008, there were food-related civil disturbances in more than 20 nations around the world. Hungry people are unhappy people. They're individuals who are desperate to find a meal. Well, you might ask, why did that happen in that time, 2008? Well, there were droughts in parts of the world. The global grain reserves were low. There were increases in demand for meat that were associated with growing affluence, and that in turn increased demand for cereals and oilseeds. There were policy issues that some nations restricted exports at a time when they had resources that could be shared. But regardless of the cause, 2008 was a clarion reminder that the supply of food available will have to be increased dramatically to feed a global population that will approach 10 billion by 2050. Well, you might say, why not just a second green revolution? Just do more of what worked before. I think it's useful to remind ourselves for a moment of the pillars, the key elements that underpinned that great green revolution. First, there was an expansion of cultivated lands. More lands, arable lands, were brought into food production. That resource is very limited today. Some estimate that there's more than 10% remaining arable lands that can be brought in production. There was genetic improvement of crops, and there's clearly potential remaining in that area. But there's a declining rate of improvement in a number of the crops and increasing yields, and the application of biotechnology to this issue is controversial, to say the least. Fertilizer was an often unappreciated element of the Green Revolution. Nitrogen particularly is important, but nitrogen fertilizer requires very significant quantities of fossil fuels for its production, and there are environmental challenges associated with inappropriate use, not only of nitrogen, but other fertilizers. Another plant nutrient, phosphorus, is increasingly dear. It was important to the Green Revolution. Some estimates are that we will reach peak phosphorus by as early as 2050. Irrigation clearly was critical to Green Revolution in parts of the world. The current usage levels of crop irrigation in some areas is simply not sustainable. Water, adequate and uncontaminated water that doesn't contaminate the foodstuff itself may be the greatest challenge that agriculture faces going forward, as we not only deal with depletion of reserves, but also changing climates. And of interest to me in particular, the research and educational institutions around the world that were built up during the Green Revolution have been very significantly diminished in recent decades by underfunding. There's a shortage of qualified agricultural scientists and educators who can take innovation and discoveries to the field for application. Clearly, the tools of the Green Revolution remain valuable assets, but they may be insufficient to meet the needs of 2050. The primary focus of the Green Revolution was to increase production, and there's no doubt that food production can be increased, but will that alone be enough? In some sense, the real issue isn't how much we produce, but actually how much is available to the ultimate consumer for use. And you've heard already this morning that roughly a third of the world's food supply is lost somewhere between harvest and consumption due to spoilage, deterioration, insect damage, and countless other factors. This represents an enormous, unconscionable waste of the resources that were utilized to produce the food: seed, fertilizer, water, land resources, and perhaps more important than anything, the human effort that went into the production of the food. It is clear that a significant portion of the increase in foodstuffs available for our population will have to come through a reduction in losses between the field and the consumer. It would seem to be a simple matter. After all, the fundamental principles of protecting cereals and oil seeds and pulses have been known for centuries, perhaps even to prehistoric times. Harvest at the proper time, reduce moisture to a level compatible with long-term storage, prevent mold, insect, rodent damage, transport safely, etc. But it's incredibly difficult sometimes to implement these very simple, important technologies. Take something as simple as harvesting. Without an effective means of knowing moisture content, the crop may be gathered prematurely and subject to mold, or perhaps left in the field till it's excessively dry, resulting in significant shatter loss during the harvesting process. And then there's a matter of simply removing the grain or seed from its protective home. A 400,000 or 500,000 combine harvester in the Midwestern United States can do this very nicely. But my friends, that is simply beyond rational possibility for the world's smallholders. Many are left, and I've seen this over and over, to use the traditional threshing floor that has been used for millennia. Back in my home state today of Illinois, corn and soybean harvest are fully underway, and most of that product will be artificially dried, using heat from natural gas, propane, and other fossil fuels, and electrically driven fans to remove the moisture. That's not even a possibility in the area of the world where there is no electricity and very limited fuels to produce heat. But you might think I'm a pessimist, but I come to this conversation today absolutely convinced that there are ways to address the issue within the context of available resources, social and cultural practices that exist in any part of the world. I'm not so naive as to believe that magic will happen here in the next 2 days, that there will be a eureka moment when a single universal solution will be identified through our conversations and we'll leave here totally transforming the world. But I am convinced that progress can be made. We know where we are today. We know the problem. And we know where we need to be tomorrow. We need to protect and preserve more of our produced food. The fundamental missing element is the roadmap that will take us from here to there. And the goal of this conference is a conversation around the formulation of the roadmap. In fact, the plan for Wednesday is that that will be the essence of the conversation, to conceptualize for all of those who are participating what needs to be done. Clearly, it will have many elements: research and development of technologies, clear and implementable educational strategies from the university to the farm level, formulation of appropriate government policies within the context of local and national needs that facilitate the prevention of loss, and you could list many other possible factors that should be involved. And all of this must be done within the context of the local social structures, culture, and available resources. I find myself asking, if we know what to do, why aren't we doing it? Is there a missing incentive at the local level? Is there a missing incentive at the national level? What do we need to do? What needs to be done to cause behaviors to change? From the perspective of the ADM Institute, I chair the advisory board for that institute, this conference is not the end. Success will be evolutionary. We anticipate organizing another conversation of this nature in 2017, again to ask ourselves the question, are we making progress in what needs to be done? I thank you very much for the opportunity to speak here this morning, and more than anything, I look forward to being a part of the conversations that will go forward over the next couple of days. Thank you.